Hello, everybody, and welcome to the next edition of Two Up Front, presented by Three Lions Pub here from the beautiful Attention Era Media Studios in downtown Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I am Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
Simon Provan, a good Tuesday to you, sir. How are we doing today?
Doing great, Baxter. How about yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. Survived the weekend. Was able to catch a little bit of MLS and NWSL action among all the other broadcasting things I had going on, but it was a good weekend to have overall. How about you?
Fantastic weekend, Baxter. Celebrated my 16th wedding anniversary with my wife.
Very exciting.
Actually went on a small camping trip.
Okay, cool.
Enjoyed Oktoberfest in New Glarus, Wisconsin, and yeah, couldn't ask for a better time than that.
Well, good. I'm so glad. It's glad to hear that you had a good weekend on your 16th wedding anniversary. Well, we are excited for our show today. We have two of the four NWSL Playoff team coaches joining us today, and the other two will join us on Thursday. We've got Portland Thorns Mark Parsons and Washington Spirit Jim Gabarra joining us here in the first and second segments. We'll get to both of them here in just a moment, but we do want to remind all of you, of course, that you can find the show on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 12 to 1 p.m. Central Time right here on Spreaker.com. And, of course, you can find more information about the show and the show on demand by going to our website, twoupfrontsoccer.com, and by going to iTunes, iHeartRadio, Vavel USA, and the Sports Podcasting Network as well.
You can also find us on Facebook, Two Up Front. In the search bar, you'll find our show page there. You can also find us on Twitter at Two Up Front Soccer, at Baxter Colburn, and at Simon Provan. Well, Baxter, as you had teased at the beginning of the show, we are very excited to welcome back to the show the man with the Midas touch when it comes to NWSL teams, fresh off of the NWSL Shield win. Mark Parsons, head coach of the Portland Thorns. Welcome to the show, Mark.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you having me back on.
Yeah, we're excited to have you, Coach. It's obviously a very exciting time in the Rose City with the Thorns winning the Shield and the Portland Timbers as well, trying to fight their way into MLS playoff contention as well, too. So I'm sure Portland is just buzzing, but we want to focus on the Thorns today. Today's a big day for you folks, obviously, and you've got a good game coming up this week as well when you take on... You've got a big game this weekend when you take on Western New York Flash, of course, on Sunday. A team that, kind of snuck into the playoffs a little bit, but a team I'm sure that you have probably told your ladies already you can't laugh at either. I'm sure. What's been your message about Western New York so far?
Well, Western New York are a very talented group. They've got a great roster, a young roster that has been, amongst some of the best players at the college level and now proving it at the professional level, mixed in with some great experience. They've caused, a lot of teams problems. They've often been one of the most, the fastest and most athletic teams in the league. It's hard to play against a team that is direct the way they are and they press high. We've had two good games against them that I think helps us, and we've also played them recently that shows that we know them well, and the vice versa, they know us well. So they're a very good team, and they're probably one of the most dangerous teams in the playoffs, and it will be an incredibly tough match for us, and potentially, probably game of the playoffs. No matter who makes it to the final, I think these two teams here, Flash and the Thorns, probably two of the most powerful and exciting teams that have played this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, with Lynn Williams being the Golden Boot winner in the league now, and Jessica McDonald also scoring last night, and she's been a threat all season long. How do you contain two dynamic players like that, Mark?
It's the same as when you play. Every team's going to have very dangerous players, and you've got to do it as a team. You have to do it together. You can't rely on individual matchups. It's not. The league is too strong to do that, and the players you're playing against them. I think we've set a foundation of always trying to defend together, defend with numbers, whether it's pressing high, whether it's in wide areas, or whether it's in low areas in and around the goal. We don't want players to get isolated, and we want to be able to defend together just the same when we have the ball, when we attack, and dealing with the best players on New York that can cause problems will be no different to any other teams that we've played. And Phil, we've done an okay job most of the time, and sometimes it's been exceptional, and we're going to need an exceptional day on Sunday.
Talking with Portland Thorns head coach Mark Parsons on the shopfutsal.com line here on Two Up Front. Coach, one of the things that NWSL does is just a one-and-done sort of playoff style. For MLS, they have the best of three series basically when it comes to the semi-conference final sort of style of play. Is that something you would rather have in the opportunity in case you were to potentially lose on Sunday, or are you fine with the one-and-done sort of format?
This has been the experience that I've had, and I think that the structure of the league and what it is. It's been set up this way for the reasons that those people make the decisions have made. And for us, we've had a lot of games this season where the pressure has been on. I feel like we had 4 or 5 games in the middle of the season where it was top of every team we played. It was, they were top or it was a top of the table clash. So I feel we've been in a lot of pressure games. And then recently, with 3 home games in a row, pressure was on us to do well. And then we go on the road to Sky Blue, and even after a strange goal that we conceded in the 5th minute, team showing great resilience and confidence to do what they need to do. So yeah, it's a structure that is going to be very rewarding or very painful. And for us, I think we've taken each game the same way. We want to win each game. We want to perform really well in each game, and every game has been so important to us. So I think this week, the only difference this week is that a lot more people talking about the one game. We internally here, every single game, it has the maximum importance to us. The preparation is the same, the details are the same, and we're ready to kick off a great training week this week in preparation for it.
Well, speaking of structure, Coach, you look at the great game that Betos had, Nadim had, of course, Ellie Long with some fantastic goals, but you look at the structure of your team. You've got 5 players on your team that have scored 5 goals or more. Already mentioned Nadim, of course, Christine Sinclair in there, Ellie Long as well. Did you structure the team to be able to spread out the goals so you have threats from all over the field, or was this just a case of happy happenstance?
Well, we structured the team to be able to be dangerous for sure, and you want to be dangerous in multiple positions, but also in multiple phases of the game. You want to be able to be dangerous when you build, you want to be dangerous when you're counter-attacking, you want to be dangerous on set pieces. And just looking at the goal scorers, I think that sums up what has made us a very good team this year. Everything that I look at, statistics and some of the key games, shouts team and teamwork and players being unselfish. We've got multiple goal scorers, like you said, which I think we've scored the most set pieces in the league, and set pieces comes down to the teamwork, and it's different players scoring these set pieces. We've been superb on the road, which I think is often a testament to the team's togetherness and character. And we've also pulled out some massive results when we had 7 Olympic players missing, but also we had 3 injured during one of our important games this year when we won 1-0 at home to Seattle. We're missing 10 players, and we pulled out one of the biggest results of the season. And then the game before Seattle, we got a tie. We had 2 clean sheets. So our defensive record, whether it's Michelle, whether it's AD, whether it's been the back 4 that played on Sunday against Sky Blue, or it's been a back 5 that we played against Seattle, whoever stepped in, set pieces, scoring, stopping goals, everyone has been unselfish and committed to the team in performing at their best, and that's it's more rewarding than any result when you see players do that and you see staff doing that, all working towards the same goal. And we've put ourselves in a good position, and now after proving, I think we've been successful over these 20 games. Now we've got to prove we can be successful, in this 90 minutes, and we'll be ready for it.
No, speaking of doing so well, you've set a club record this year, 12 wins and 41 points, so it does speak, obviously, to that structure we were talking about. On top of that, I'd just like to ask, so you're down 1-0, this last game, I don't want to overlook that game much, but you're down 1-0 to Sky Blue. You get the goal in the 40th minute, a great restart kick from Tobin Heath that Ellie puts in the back of the goal. What do you say to your team at halftime when you're drawing 1-1 at that point?
We don't often get dragged into the emotion. I used to do that a couple of years ago. I used to be, live by the moment and be emotional. And I'm saying emotionally in a good way and sometimes in a bad way. We had objectives in the game. Half-time, it was a review of those objectives. And also, was there anything new that we wasn't expecting that we have to solve? Now, we're 1-1. I think that in the beginning of that half against Sky Blue for 20-25 minutes, we had complete control and we were dangerous. The final 20-25 minutes, we had control, but we wasn't being dangerous. Secondly, the counter-attack we knew was coming from them. We wasn't doing as good as we could to deal with that counter-attack. That's what led to the corner, which led to us getting caught out. So we reviewed the objectives that we had. Was there anything brand new, which we didn't think there was, to manage? And we go out and we continue with the tasks at hand and believe in what we've been doing. And that, I think this stage of the season, some coaches, some teams are, it can be a nervous time. And I've been in those positions before when you don't know what your team is, you don't know really your identity. I think we're in a different place. We do know. We know what we want to do. We know how to do it. We know the teams very well in this league. Sometimes you get caught. There are surprises when you get to game day. Most of the time there isn't. But we feel good, and I think being in this place and feeling comfortable in knowing what we want to do and how we want to do it. Now our energy and our focus is on execution rather than figuring out what we need to do and how to do it. Can we execute what we know works, and this week is in preparation. That's what it's going to be about.
Awesome. Well, Coach, we really wish you the very best of luck as you take on Western New York Flash. Of course, you can catch that game on Sunday, October 2nd at 5 p.m. Eastern Time on FS1, so definitely a marquee matchup to be highlighted on a marquee network as well. Coach, we wish you the best of luck, and hopefully we'll be talking to you again in a couple of weeks as the 2016 NWSL champions, Portland Thorns. Thanks for taking the time today, Coach. We appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Great coverage. You always appreciate it. Take care.
Thanks so much, Mark. We appreciate you. Have a good one, Coach. All right, we're going to run to a break. When we come back, we head over to the other team that has the home field advantage. We go to Washington Spirit and talk to their head coach, Jim Gabarra. You're listening to Two Up Front, presented by Three Lions Pub. Back after this. Welcome back inside the studio. Two Up Front, presented by Three Lions Pub. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And I'm Simon Provan.
All right, Simon Provan. We move all the way from Portland to the other side of the country to Washington. Or maybe we don't do it, do we? I never remember geographically where these teams are located. Washington Spirit, they're in D.C., aren't they?
Yes, they are.
That's
what
I thought.
Yes.
I was like, wait a minute. As soon as I said it, I'm like, wait a minute. But I'm like, I've been doing this for how long now? I promise I know what's going on. I've only had one cup of coffee today, so that's probably why I'm a little
just
little
to clarify,
frazzled.
it's Seattle that's in the state of Washington.
Right.
Washington Spirit is from
so
D.C.
So confusing. I don't know. Either way, we get to go. We just heard from head coach Mark Parsons of the Portland Thorns. Now we get to go to the Washington Spirit and talk to their head coach, Jim Gabarra. Coach, welcome to Two Up Front. How are we doing today, sir?
I'm good, guys. How are you?
Oh, we're doing well. We are excited to have you on. A big game upcoming on Friday as you guys take on the Chicago Red Stars at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You get the home field advantage after you just lost to the Chicago Red Stars 3-1. You kind of got an opportunity, though, I feel like, to really focus in on who you were playing. When you went into that game against Chicago, did you think that you were going to have to see them again in just a couple of days later on?
We actually expected to see them a couple days or a week later because if we had won and won the Shield, we would have probably been hosting them. So it's difficult part of the schedule. We looked at that part of the schedule at the end of our season, and looking at our goals, we didn't want to be chasing points and having to play those games to get into the playoffs because we had a very difficult Western New York team at home, then a midweek game with Seattle, and then we had to travel to Seattle, and then a break, which always throws things off as far as your rhythm, and then we had to go to Chicago, which is a difficult place to play. So,
quite the gauntlet. Holy cow, my goodness.
Yeah, I mean, every team had to do that, the 3 games in 8 days, but it was a difficult, you looked at our schedule, and it was like, you probably shouldn't expect to get too many points out of that part of your schedule.
Sure.
it was a great job by the staff and the team to get home field advantage earlier on in the playoffs. And as bad as we wanted to win the Shield, the goal here is to win a championship, and the secondary goal is to host the game, host the semifinal, because that gives you a better chance of advancing to the final. So, we've accomplished all of our goals so far, and now, we're focusing in on Chicago and playing much better at home than we did on the road.
Well, of course, you had a couple of injuries that you were dealing with as well. Alyssa Nahar, your starting goalkeeper, of course, and Stephanie McCaffrey. Was going into the game then against Chicago, knowing that you would see them in a few more days in the playoffs, was there any type of holding cards close to your chest for this game, or was the plan to still go out there and play like it's any other game?
No, we've approached. We've tried to win every game, and we saw that as a chance to basically play for a trophy. And for whatever reasons, we had a really poor performance by a number of players, and as a group, it wasn't really how we've been playing and how we've been successful. So, I think it's we hadn't seen Kristen Press here in our first matchup, so it was good to get to see her there, and with Alyssa Nair, that she's one of the best goalkeepers around. So it's going to be as expected, a very challenging and tightly played contest in the semifinal.
Do you expect to have her back for your playoff game, Alyssa?
I don't know. I'm coaching against her, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
I expect her to be back. I hope not. I think it's every team in this league is good, and the balance of competition is extremely high, and you can go any game, any time, any stadium, and the team can beat you. So, our methodology this year is to try to win every game, and there's going to be times where some players aren't available for selection, whether that's national team breaks or injuries or players coming back from injury, and it's not worth risking playing them to make sure that they're there available for the game that you really need to win. We're in a knockout phase now, so it's basically everybody that's available is going to be needed and hopefully called upon.
All right, now let me redeem myself here a little bit. You've got a very important player on your team, of course, with Crystal Dunn. Although some players played poorly, I mean, she had, especially right near the end of the first half, a run where she basically did a Diego Maradona, making her way through the entire Chicago defense, almost scoring a goal there. How important is she going to be for you?
Well, she's very important. I mean, we coming into the season, being new to the club, I looked at her season last year, and I thought they relied an awful lot on her, and I wanted to come in and give some support to her and have some other ways to score goals and other ways to play that are less reliant on individuals. And I think we've done a good job of that, and she's contributed greatly to that in the ways that she can, which is she's a difference maker. She scores goals, and maybe not as many this year as she did last year, but she draws an enormous amount of attention for defending and tactically planning to play against us, and I think she's got 4 or 5 assists this year. So she's someone who we is a very, very big part of our attacking play, and someone that allows other players to create and score just by being on the field.
Coach, I'm curious, just to play devil's advocate for a second here. Let's say you lose on Friday night. What is your takeaway then from this entire season? Since you didn't win the Shield and then you would get knocked out in the quote-unquote first round of the playoffs.
Well, I look at it as our goals are to win a championship, and that's the ultimate goal. And then we evaluate what we did in the regular season. We've already done that, and we achieved every goal we had in front of us. And I'm not. It's not even my mind that we're losing on Friday, so I can't answer that question because we get a win. We get a home win. We only had 1 loss here all season, and that was a poor performance. I expect the team to come out firing and be in Houston on the 9th, and then we can evaluate whether we achieved our ultimate goal, which is to win a championship on the 10th.
One of the things that you guys had the opportunity to have in that Chicago game, though, was the return of Estefany Bonini, I'm sure, which is very exciting. She brings 5 goals now back onto your team and 1 assist. when you get a player like that back just before the playoffs start, how important is that for your offense that has done a fairly good job of scoring from multiple different areas, but you bring on, one of your team's best goal scorers, your leading goal scorer, back right before the playoffs?
Yeah, it's huge, and we were right on the edge of her return timetable, so it was important for us to get her some minutes in Chicago rather than have her first minutes be in the semifinal. And I thought she looked really good. She looked really sharp in training, and she feels great, and she's glad to be back playing. And it's she brings a different style and a different type of play, but she's done a great job this year of playing the way we want to play, and a quick tempo. And she had a really good run there where she was carrying us through the part of the season during the Olympic break where we didn't have national team players that were involved in the Olympics. So it's been great to have her back, and like you said, it adds one more scoring element to our attack that makes us more difficult to defend against.
You had mentioned Kristen Press earlier, and I do have to ask you, she's such an outstanding, explosive player. How do you handle her on Friday night?
Well, it's fast forwards are difficult to deal with, but I think she's got great technical ability as well. So it's she's someone who's very difficult to defend against, and I think we've got to do a better job of preventing the transition attacks because I think that's how she's most dangerous. So I think we've looked at that in film, and we've looked at it in training. So I think obviously the best way to defend against that is to deny the quick transition balls up to her, where she's got lots of space to get in behind our back four, and the back four has to manage. In this case, there's two forwards up there, so they have to do a better job of managing that and staying connected and cutting out the passing lane so that she's got to come back and get the ball in front of our back line.
One of the things we saw, at least when you were taking on Chicago this last weekend, you had a lot of the Ali Krieger-Kristen Press battle going on, at least when Kristen got herself drawn to the outside. We know, obviously, that Ali is used to playing against her in training for the U.S. women's national team. Is that kind of a conversation you might have with Ali and say, hey, be more of a spy on Kristen since you're more used to playing against her? Or are you going to just hope that your center backs are able to keep up with the speedy press?
No, it's the entire back line to defend against Kristen Press. You're never going to do it with one player, otherwise you're going to get pulled all over the field. And actually, I thought Kristen Press tends to go to our left side more than over to where Ali is. So it's not a conversation that we would have. It's basically about how we defend as a group and how we defend as a team, and can we press teams and keep them in their half, and then manage the back line as a collective unit, and with our defensive midfielder, deny them scoring chances. It's not. I think you can't really get too caught up in that's their best goal scorer. How do we stop them? I think it's more about how do you stop goals against no matter who you're playing.
One final question here for you, Coach, before we let you run. There was an article that came out recently from a couple of different sources for the upper players that should be called to the U.S. women's national team, and your midfielder, Christine Nairn, was one of the many names listed. When you hear about that being listed as a coach that sees her day in and day out, is she the type of player that you think does deserve to get back up into Jill Ellis's senior squad?
Yeah, I think every team probably has 3 to 5 of those players, and the wonderful thing about how the women's game in this country is evolving is that the league is becoming more important, and your performance in the league is becoming more important. And there's actually, that carrot is actually a realistic thing out there for these players. Like, I'll give Ali Long as an example, who has toiled away for years and years with the goal of getting on the national team and been one of the better players in Portland. Just as Christine Nairn has been really good here for Washington. But those players now are actually going to see the tangible rewards of performing well in the league by being called into the national team.
Well, fantastic. Well, Coach, we wish you a very best of luck when you take on the Chicago Red Stars on Friday, September 30th, 8 p.m. Eastern Time. You can catch the game on FS1. Coach, thank you so much for taking some time today, and we wish you the very best of luck, sir.
Thank you. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, good to talk to you as
Jim.
well, Coach. Appreciate it. All right, we are going to head to another break. When we come back, we're going to go to our kick around. We were a little all over the place here in the show because we had some great interviews we had to get to, but some things taking place not only across the pond in England, some good, some bad, and some other things taking place as well, too. You're listening to Two Up Front, presented by Three Lines Pub. We'll be back with more right after this. Welcome back to Two Up Front, presented by Three Lions Pub here from the Attention Era Media Studios. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And this is Connor Provan's uncle.
I actually understand the context of that. Everyone's like, what are you talking about?
Yes, if you don't know, I put out a thing on Facebook yesterday talking about how I do have a nephew playing at Sussex Hamilton who was coached by my oldest brother and also his dad. But it was funny, growing up, my brothers were so skilled at the game that I honestly was very rarely called by my first name by people in the soccer community. And I'll admit to me, when I was younger, kind of got to me, but I was always Steve's brother or Jake's brother or Josh's brother. And, very unless I was on the field with my teammates, rarely do people call me Simon. Well, now, since Two Up Front's been pretty successful here, I've actually been known as Simon Provan, the guy that does Two Up Front with Baxter. And, Connor's been doing so well now. He's been in the papers so much, player of the week this week and that week, and named the biggest scoring threat in the conference that he plays in. Well, I think about the last 3 or 4 days, at least one person has come up to me saying, "Hey, is Connor your son, or are you Connor's uncle?" so I've moved on beyond Simon, and now at the other end of the spectrum of being Connor's uncle.
Now you're the uncle then. You're no longer a brother, you're just an uncle.
That's
now,
right,
I
that's
guess.
right.
My goodness. And then when your daughters become famous, either actresses or soccer players, you're X and Y's dad. Or
Yeah, you know what though? It's different when it's your nephews or nieces or kids, and it's
true.
That's
you're right.
pretty awesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
Connor's a good kid too. He's going to be playing at UW Milwaukee, and I couldn't be more pleased to be known as Connor Provan's uncle. So there you go.
Well, very excited. We want to remind all of you, of course, that you can check us out on social media. We are live, so you can interact with the show in real time as well, too, by using the going to Twitter and going to @2UpFrontSoccer, @Baxter Colburn, @Simon Provan as well, if you want to chat with us live. If you're listening on Spreaker, too, you can also go to the little chat section on the live show, and you can give us your comments or thoughts, of course, about anything going on. All right, let's go to our kick-around segment here, Simon, because I know we're out of order, but we've had some great guys joining us on the shopfutsal.com line. Mark Parsons and Jim Gabarra joined us here in first and second segments. We're going to continue to talk about coaches. This is almost turning into a coaching show, I feel like. It's ridiculous. But good news, maybe, for U.S. Soccer fans that still are holding on to Bob Bradley. There's rumors that he is being linked to the Swansea City coaching job. He's already met with the head of Swansea City, but the catch is Swansea hasn't even fired their manager yet, but they're already apparently looking for replacements.
Well, there's a lot of pressure on Swansea because they are not performing well at all. And I think, reading through this, Baxter, I think it actually is more than a rumor. It does sound like to me that Bradley has basically confirmed that he has met with the Swansea owners.
Yes,
and it makes
official,
sense.
yep.
It makes sense for him. He's been known to take teams that are struggling a bit and rejuvenating them. I mean, you see what he did with the Egyptian national team. Almost carried the League Two club that he is with in France.
They're in seventh right now.
But of course, what he did in the where was it? Was it Norway or was it Sweden? I always get confused because those leagues sound the same. The Scandinavian countries.
I don't
but
know.
anyways, he got a league from team
Tipper League.
Yeah,
is that what it was?
I think it was Sweden though. I want to say it was Sweden. I'm pretty sure. Anyways, he gets the team promoted, and it's basically the weakest team financially speaking, and keeps them up in the league. And not only that, he gets them to the Europa League the year after that. So it makes sense that Swansea, who's owned by Americans, would reach out to Bob Bradley. Quite frankly, I think he deserves it. I'm not saying he deserves to be at a Manchester United, but
no.
But here's a coach getting results and basically getting ignored by these bigger clubs. So to me, it makes sense.
Well, because a lot of coaches, or a lot of clubs look at Americans and they're like, oh, what do you know?
Absolutely.
So that's a big, if you want to talk about discrimination in soccer, there's a big one right now, is that Americans don't know anything about soccer, which I would somewhat agree with, but not in this regards. Bob Bradley, he's a seasoned coach. He's been all around the world. He knows what he's doing. He's been to the World Cup with the national team, and he's almost got another one there, as you mentioned, too. But yeah, as you mentioned, Swansea right now, they're 17th in the Premier League. They haven't won a game all season. Why not at this point? I mean, bring in a new guy, bring in someone that has no Premier League experience, and just let him dabble. Why not at this point,
Right. And by the way, it was Norwegian side Stabæk, so I was wrong. It wasn't Sweden, it was Norway.
Okay.
But here's the kicker, Baxter. Obviously, if you don't know, Swansea is actually a Welsh team that plays in the Premier League. They're also interviewing Ryan Giggs, who, of course, is a great former Welsh player. So
but do you want that kind of job, though? I don't know if he'd want the Swansea job.
I think he would love it.
He basically had the United job aside from Jose Mourinho.
Well, he's assistant. I mean, I think anytime you can jump up from assistant to head coach, you take whatever job comes your way. That's still, I mean, it's still a Premier League club.
Oh, yeah. No, I would agree with that. If I were Ryan Giggs, though, I would be hard-pressed to say, you know what, I like my position at United because I think, number one, I'm probably getting paid very well. I'm probably getting treated like royalty still because I'm one of the most hallowed players in team history. I don't care if I'm an assistant coach. He probably gets paid really well and still gets to play with world-class players on the training pitch and work with them instead of a struggling team that can't even put the ball in the back of the net.
And I totally get that, but when you're sitting in the shadow of David Moyes, LVG, and now Jose Mourinho, I'm looking at that saying, I want to get out of the shadow because I want to lead my own club.
I wouldn't want to lead Swansea. Personally, I'd be like, I'm good with United. I'll stay here for a while and be an assistant. Speaking of other things taking place in England, though, Simon, Big Sam Allardyce, the England manager, has apparently been put under investigation by the FA because of him saying that he can be bought, apparently, or he knows a way to get around the rules on player transfers, and he was talking to some undercover reporters, and he finds himself in a bit of hot water while he's barely been with the team for maybe, I think it's been 2 months, I think, total.
67 days.
My goodness.
1 game.
And he's already been in trouble. What do you make of all this chaos with Sam Allardyce?
Well, it doesn't surprise me in some way. I think ultimately, here's the thing. The English have to get over, and pardon me if you're an English fan listening to this, but they have to get over their arrogance that they need an English manager. So it doesn't matter if this is going on or not. It doesn't have to be an English manager. We've talked before on the show.
Yeah.
Sven-Goran Eriksson led them farther in the World Cup than they were in a long time. Fabio Capello, Italian.
Yeah.
Leads them to a decent place in the World Cup as well. Now, as England, you always want to win the World Cup. I get that. But you don't have English managers leading these teams to the promised land.
Exactly. I'm surprised we haven't seen a Jose Mourinho or a Pep Guardiola at the national team level for an England team that is so desperate to win again. I don't know if that would work, but it would be interesting to see. They're both already in England already. They probably know the players and the system fairly well.
You know, well, I wonder about Jose Mourinho, though, because, look, he didn't do well with Chelsea last year. He's not doing that great with Manchester United. Has the game suddenly, surprisingly passed him by a bit, or has his tactics of the way he works with players, is that the problem? I don't know. I don't know if Jose Mourinho is the right type of coach for a national team. I think he's more of a club coach.
Yeah, I would have to probably agree with you on that one too. You always wonder with some of those big guys what they're capable of doing at the highest level, I feel like.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, like Ars Wenger said today, is you got to give Big Sam a chance to clear his name first of all. You know, these are allegations. We got to find out the whole story before you jump the gun. Do I think he should be suspended or something like that? I don't know. I don't know enough details of it. I don't think anybody knows enough details of it. You gotta have that investigation.
And that's usually what happens. Make sure you let us know your thoughts about Big Sam and Bob Bradley, of course, on Twitter, 2UpFront, or at 2UpFrontSoccer, pardon me, and at Baxter Colburn, at Simon Provan. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, we're going to continue to talk about coaching. But for a good thing, though, Atlanta United, they've named their coach, and some possible teams that might need coaches as well with MLS Expansion, among other things. We'll be right back. You're listening to 2UpFront, presented by Three Lions Pub. Welcome back to Two Up Front, presented by Three Lions Pub. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
Simon Provan, we want to take a quick minute, though, to thank our presenting sponsor, Three Lions Pub, for their support. If you're in the Milwaukee area and you love soccer, why not head down? They've got some more featured games coming up this week, don't they?
They sure do. Well, today... Let's see, this game will kick off in about an hour. They've got, of course, some live Champions League action.
Yeah.
On Sunday, though, is the big one. Tottenham versus Man City, 8:14 a.m. for that one. So a little bit earlier than last week's featured match, but it's still worth getting up for, going to the pub, getting yourself a great pint and some great English food.
Yeah, you're absolutely right about that one. A very special thanks to Three Lions Pub and Red Lion Pub for their support of Two Up Front, and make sure to go and check out those games if you're in the Milwaukee area this weekend, or if you want to make a trip to Milwaukee either as well.
You know, one of the other things, too, is obviously we talk football in the sense of soccer on this show, but Three Lions Pub is also a great place to check out some American football.
Yeah.
So, you want to head down there on Sundays, Sunday nights, Monday nights, Thursday. I think the NFL plays almost every night of the week now.
Basically.
So
if there's money for it, might as well.
So it's always a great atmosphere there as well. It's not everybody speaking with an English accent. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but check out the American football atmosphere over at Three Lions Pub and Red Lion Pub as well.
All right, let's move into MLS as we have the official coach announcement for Atlanta United FC, Simon's new favorite colored team. He loves the colors. He's already gotten an Atlanta United FC tattoo.
I don't know where you come up with this stuff sometimes.
I just repeat what you tell me. That's all I say. I promise. I speak no weird things. I promise. Either way, though.
It's only fair, though, too, you've talked about you love that they ripped off the Avengers A for their logo as well.
Oh, my gosh. It's ridiculous.
Anyways.
Either way, so Geraldo Tata Martino has been named the first ever head coach of Atlanta United FC, the Argentinian man, immediately making this Atlanta United team under immense pressure.
Well, here's the thing. He's talked about how he likes to play with immense pressure.
Yeah.
And you wonder, this is a club that so far is doing things right off the field. Yeah, we're not a big fan of them playing on artificial turf, just like I'm not a fan of my Timbers playing on artificial turf.
Sure.
But it is what it is. You just wonder, in this type of league, can you, in the first year, come out of the gate and put high pressure on other teams and expect to have any type of lead, much less any type of victories?
Well, it all depends, because so far Atlanta United, I think, has done a fantastic job with how they've gone about doing everything. I mean, they've already signed a couple of good players as well, too. They've got Kenwin Jones, among others, and they're working on a couple other bigger international players, and just the structure of the organization seems to be going in the right direction. But we know Arthur Blank as a whole does a great job when it comes to building up a sports franchise, as we saw with the Falcons. I don't know, though, and we've seen this consistently, foreign coaches struggling immensely in MLS. I hope that he goes the smart way and brings a lot of seasoned MLS coaching veterans onto his staff. Otherwise, Atlanta's going to be lucky if they get even above 7th place in the East next year.
I agree. I don't... Honestly, I don't see them making the playoffs. I think MLS is too big of a league now where you can expect expansion teams to make the playoffs, even perhaps make a run at the playoffs. Maybe year 2, year 3, you can expect that. But look, they've done it right, as you had mentioned. They got Carlos Bocanegra in there already, so they have somebody with MLS knowledge, MLS experience, who's going to help Martino a great deal as he starts to learn this league that has so many incredibly odd rules, not just game day rules. Well, not really that much game day rules, but all player signings, how you can sign them. It's not a salary cap; it's a salary budget. TAM money.
GAM. There's all sorts of AMs, and I don't even know.
So thankfully, Atlanta has somebody like Carlos to navigate those waters for Martino.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you on that one. You do have to wonder now how long until Minnesota officially announces their coach, and even LAFC as well. Because both of those teams, I mean, we know that LAFC haven't signed anybody yet as well. They just broke ground on their what's going to be gorgeous stadium. Minnesota, we haven't really heard much. We've heard a couple of different things floated for them. We've heard they're going to try to bring some of their NASL squad with them up to MLS, which is a little surprising, but at the same time, maybe a smart move because they've been doing pretty well at NASL.
Well, Seattle did it when they weren't in MLS. Yeah. When they came to MLS, they kept some players on. Philadelphia did it, of course, and they didn't have a NASL team, but they got players from what was then, I think, USL D2 or USSF D2, whatever it was. It was some weird thing at that time. So teams have done that before. My question for you, Baxter, is do we see LAFC have the first female head coach in the league in Mia Hamm?
Well, it all depends on how soon they want to get their NWSL team up, I feel like. Because we've heard that they want to get the NWSL team. I think, obviously, Mia Hamm knows both leagues exceptionally well because she's been around U.S. soccer forever, it seems like. I think it would be intriguing if Mia Hamm did it, but I think she has more to offer to the women's game because MLS, they're established, they know what's going on. NWSL, everybody's hoping and praying that they can continue to grow. They've got the great base, but I think Mia would serve the women's game better than she would the men's game. And it would take away from what LAFC is trying to do because all the storylines would be like, the first female coach, the first female.
Well, I don't think that takes away from what they're trying to do. I think it
distracts from what they're trying to do on the field.
I think it adds to it.
Yes.
Because they're saying, look, we're a big club, and we're going to make a huge statement here.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that one, but I can see so many people losing their minds if they don't make the playoffs, be like, wow, it's because we have a women coach. She's never played in the league. She doesn't know what it's like.
I don't think people would. I want to give this country more credit than that. I actually don't think people would react to that. If we're talking about Atlanta not making the playoffs in their first year with Martino at the helm and people being okay with that, then they sure as well be okay with, this is all hypothetical, but a Mia Hamm-led LAFC not making the playoffs.
Yes. No, I would agree with you on that one too, but I think both of them, because one's a foreign coach, one's a female, I think the scrutiny would still be very high because, well, Martino doesn't know the league and Mia never played in the league and she did so much for the women's game. Why is she trying to make a statement in the men's league? I can see. I'm trying to play the devil's advocate. Obviously, I can see the negativity of how stupid Twitter is and how stupid people are as a whole.
I mean, what foreign coach? I shouldn't ask what foreign coach, but foreign coaches have been known to just fall flat on their face in this league because they don't understand the little rules that you have to work around or work with.
I'd agree. No, I completely agree. One other thing, I'm curious to get your thoughts about this because I feel like it doesn't go by without a week or two where we don't hear about some huge European star being rumored to come to MLS at some point. Gerard Piqué from Barcelona has hinted that he would be interested in a future move to MLS, as everybody would once he's 85 and can barely walk again. Do you give this any sort of... Do you take any grain of salt from this, or are you just like, meh?
These statements, Ronaldo said back in 2005 that he'd be interested in playing in MLS. All these guys, I don't know if I said that right, MLS. All these guys come out and say this. They're either using it as a bargaining chip, or a reporter's asked them, hey, would you ever be interested in playing in MLS?
And their response is, well,
yeah, when I'm older.
Most of these guys will never come straight out and be like, you know what, MLS. I'm going next year.
Which I don't blame them for that. But
why would you? Why would you give up millions and millions of dollars to come play in MLS?
To answer your question directly, no, I take nothing from that comment whatsoever. Will he play here someday? Sure, I believe that maybe he will, but by that point, I don't care.
Yeah. One other question I'm curious to get your thoughts about. New England striker Kai Kamara admits he was very surprised about getting booed when he was playing in the Revs jersey in Columbus. He's like, I've done so much for this city. I mean, I took him to an MLS Cup. Why are you booing me?
What's your question?
What do you make of it? Is it ridiculous, or is it just funny, or what?
I think it's funny for the fact that he was surprised people booed him after the way that he did leave. Granted, he was traded, but
it wasn't maybe his fault that he got moved, though.
No, I think it was his fault. He wouldn't take responsibility for what he said. He wouldn't. Now, listen, I'm not saying in and of itself that that's a bad thing, but for what happened and him to continue on and say, no, I should have taken that penalty. I should have taken that penalty. Okay, then he becomes a cancer to the locker room, so bye-bye.
Yeah.
They send him off. It was because of his actions that he got traded. So, no, I'm not surprised that he got booed, and I think it's funny that he was surprised.
Yeah, Kai Kamara, he said, come on, you make so many sacrifices for an organization to really boost it, but hey, if I can bring some life to the stadium for once in the season, why not? So he kind of got a little backhanded.
Well, there you go. And then he's wondering why he's getting booed.
Exactly. He's like, it hurts to feel something like that. The first day I stepped into this club here, I did a lot for things, for the people. They say, for Columbus, us, and that's what I did. So to feel like you're not us and the sacrifices that you made to help build something into a fortress, which I don't know if it's a fortress unless it's USA Mexico, to take it to the top, which they did last season, and to get the reception just kind of shows it all. So he was a little upset, I guess,
usually
about how they're treating him.
When you build a fortress, you don't lose there in the championship game.
True.
Which Columbus did.
That is true. Kai Kamara didn't do very much in the MLS championship game, that's for sure. I'm curious now, too. I think it really hit me how close the playoffs are when 3 of the 6 Eastern Conference teams booked their ticket this
Absolutely.
weekend. I was like, oh, okay, we're close now. Oh my goodness. Red Bulls, TFC, and NYCFC all have 48 points, all booked their playoff tickets this last weekend. And now it's really setting in, I feel like, about how close we are down the stretch and just how much pressure there is on teams.
Well,
in the East.
it's either how close we are, Baxter, or just how bad the East continues
Both.
to be.
It's much of both, because you look at
I'm not saying the entire East is bad, but it's kind of like the Premier League here. You have 3 teams that are very strong in the East: the Red Bulls, Toronto FC, and New York City FC. But the rest of the East.
Oh, exactly. And if you look at it, too, they wouldn't even be considered the best teams in the Western Conference either, too, because FC Dallas, Colorado, and LA all have equal, if not more, points than the 3 best teams in the Eastern Conference. I would still stand by the fact that I think FC Dallas would run through any of the top teams, I think, in the playoffs. Not necessarily right now.
No, I don't agree with that. Not right now. They are not playing that well. They're kind of a wounded bull right now.
Yes.
And I think Toronto FC would be able to beat them. I think the Red Bulls would be able to beat them. Listen, with the way David Villa is playing, I think New York City FC... I mean, surprising that after Lampard goes down, the Baby Blues still play fantastic.
Well, they played Chicago, so there's only that much that you can really say.
Sure, but that was a very dominant performance against Chicago, though.
It was. No, I completely agree.
Listen, again, with the way that FC Dallas is playing right now, I had predicted way back when they were playing fantastic that they'd do the trouble this year, but I'm not so sure about that anymore.
Well, they still got the points, at least, for it right now. They're 5 points clear, of any team in MLS at the moment.
But the Rapids can still catch. No, they can't anymore. Never mind. That'd be 2 games, 6 points. Yes, they can.
Yep.
54. So I don't think the Rapids will, but the Rapids could catch them.
They could. They certainly could. We'll have to see what all transpires. We're going to go to our final break. When we come back, it'll be time for our MLS Power Rankings and our closing thoughts. You're listening to 2 Up Front, presented by 3 Lines Pub. Back with more right after this. Welcome back to 2 Up Front, presented by 3 Lines Pub. I'm Baxter Colburn.
And this is Simon Provan.
All right, Simon Provan, we move into the final segment of our show. We've had a fantastic show today. Special thanks to Jim Gabarra and Mark Parsons of the Washington Spirit and Portland Thorns, respectively, joining us in our first and second segments on the shopfutsal.com line. Coming up on Thursday's show, we talked to Coach Rory and we talked to Coach Paul Riley of Chicago and Western New York Flash to conclude our small 4-part series of talking to all the playoff coaches before they play their games.
What an awesome time, though, to be on 2 Up Front talking to all these gentlemen.
Yeah.
You know, just fantastic, and really excited that the NWSL playoffs are here, talking about playoffs in our last segment.
Yep.
We're going to see 2 fantastic semifinals, Baxter. And, of course, I didn't say it on the air. I wanted to be professional with Mark, but
of course,
you know that I'm a Thorns fan.
Yes, of course. It's very obvious.
Last week I had made a double I believe prediction in that they would win the Shield, which they did, and I still very strongly believe, not just because they're the Thorns, but with the way they're playing, with how spread out their offense is, and that they can attack from any place that they want, I still see them winning the NWSL championship game.
Interesting. All right, let's head over to our MLS Power Rankings. First time in a long time that Simon and I actually agree on something. We have the exact same 5 teams in the exact same 5 locations. I'll be honest, after 1 and 2, I really don't care, because 2 through 5 is just such a toss-up through most of these MLS teams.
Yes.
So,
I mean, really, at this point, you could almost throw Columbus in there, who's on a 2-game win streak, who we don't have.
New England won 3 out of their last 4 games. I know as soon as I put them in last week, I said now they're going to lose, and they did. But still, they've won 3 out of their last 4.
And granted, it was at Columbus, but
DC,
funny enough, Columbus, I mean, they're playing well, but they're still not.
They're not going to make the playoffs.
Yeah.
No, there's too much in front of them. They would have to, Well, they've got a game in hand on a couple of the teams ahead of them, so they've got 2 games on hand on New England. So there's a possibility. I'm saying there's a chance, but I don't know. DC United continues to be a thorn in the Eastern Conference side.
That's something I was going to say is I had contemplated putting DC in these power rankings as well. A draw with the Red Bulls at New York, that was big. That was a few weeks ago. Or Chicago, at Chicago. They draw with Chicago. Now listen, Chicago's not that great of a team, but they do play well at home. Even if they don't get the results, they play well at home. And then they get that huge win against Orlando, 4-1. So it was hard not to put DC in these power rankings, but I think we both knew as soon as we would, they'd lose their next game.
Exactly. So maybe we should have put them in so they can lose, so that way New England can get into the playoffs.
That's all on you, Baxter.
Yeah.
All on you.
Oh, yes. 100% my fault or something. I don't even know. So we both have the LA Galaxy at number 5. They sit in 3rd place in the Western Conference. They lost 4-2 to the Seattle Sounders in a thrashing by Jordan Morris and Nicholas Ladero and Alonso, and everybody for Seattle was like, we're a good team again. Woo!
Well, and here's the thing, is people may say, okay, you're putting LA at number 5 after they lose, but let's face it, you had them at number 2 last week. I had them at number 3, and yes, they lost, but
I think it's a fair spot.
It's not like they've been losing all their. I mean, that was their first loss in 7 games or
Something
so,
like
and within those games, they had a couple wins. The rest were draws. So LA Galaxy, still, at the end of the day, you put them up against a lot of these other teams.
Yeah.
I still sense that they would win.
I would agree. No, I completely agree with you on that one. All right, number 4 is Sporting Kansas City.
What?
I don't know what to do with Sporting Kansas City. They are in 5th place in the Western Conference, 43 points, 12, and 7.
Hey, they beat San Jose 2-1 in San Jose. They had to travel, halfway across the country to do that. Just before that, a couple of draws. I'm sure they'll end up losing their next game,
Probably.
But for this week, we're talking about power rankings, and they're one of the better teams.
Yeah, I'd agree. They would not win a first-round playoff game, I don't think. Or win a series if they got into an actual playoff series, I don't feel like. They're just not that good this season.
Exactly, yes.
Number 3 for us is the Seattle Sounders. They have jumped immensely in the power rankings. They weren't even in them last week. They're still 3 points out of the red line in the Western Conference behind the Portland Timbers.
But they have plenty of games in hand.
They do. They have 2. On Portland, at least.
Jordan Morris is he's the player that everybody was hoping for.
Mm-hmm.
Soccer America had a nice article or nice op-ed about how he's made all the right decisions so far in his career, which is an interesting read, so check that out. I don't know why I'm plugging Soccer America. It's not like they sponsor us, but maybe they should. Anyways, of course, you have Ladero playing well. Him and Alonso in the midfield are a fantastic combination. Of course, Stefan Fry gives up a couple of goals, but nevertheless, they beat LA 4-2 just before their 2 games before that.
Before that second goal was scored by LA.
Right. So yeah, Seattle is looking like the team that's going to make that jump over the red line and keep the Timbers out. The MLS Cup champions Timbers may not even make the playoffs.
We'll have to see. Toronto FC is our number 2 team, one of the 3 Eastern Conference teams to book a ticket this last weekend. They're 13-8-9 overall on the season. They've only lost twice at home this year, which I think is very impressive. They've got 48 total points. They're taking 1.6 points per game, which is the best in the East, even though they're in second place. But there's the weird goal difference and all that other BS. That's why they're in second place, technically, I feel like.
Yeah, sure. In their last 11 games, they've only lost once.
Not bad.
They've been doing this without Javinko, not all 11 games, but 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah.
He may be coming back.
What a time for him to come back. Yeah. What a time for them to come back. What a time to potentially maybe steal the Shield.
Very possibly.
Maybe.
With the way FC Dallas is playing right now, I don't see them winning the Shield.
Yeah, that would be very intriguing.
The only way they do is because of the cushion that they've built for themselves.
Yes.
So at the end of the season,
they've got a 5-point cushion. Yeah,
right.
That's the only way they could successfully grab that. All right, and finally, our number 1 team, of course, again, is the New York Red Bulls. 13 wins, 11 of those at home this year. Their away record bothers me, especially come playoff time, but they're an incredibly good team. They're very well coached. Bradley Wright Phillips, Sasha Kleshton. Luis Robles. The team knows what they're doing.
Well, and here's the thing. When they're at home, they score lots of goals.
Yeah.
And they're not giving up a ton on the road. So that's, in these two-legged series, that's going to play huge into how they do in the postseason. But look, they haven't lost. We put them at number 1. They haven't lost, as you said, in 13 games. You can't knock them down from that. I did think that they would put more of a beating on Montreal. They only won 1-0.
Yeah, only 1-0. A little underwhelming. Montreal somehow is still in the playoffs.
But I guess, Bradley Wright Phillips, he can't score every game.
He should. He really should. I don't know. So our power rankings one more time for you. LA, Sporting, Seattle, TFC, and the Red Bulls, 5 through 1 respectively. Let us know your thoughts on Twitter at 2UpFrontSoccer, at Baxter Colburn, at Simon Provan. Simon, any final thoughts for you this week before we wrap it up?
Just interesting that the commissioner of MLS is going to be heading down to Cincinnati to talk possible expansion down there. I don't get it, Baxter. I know Cincinnati's doing fantastic, but it's been one season. You got Sacramento Republic. Maybe it's because of the map of the league that Gabarra just doesn't want another California team. But that looks like an organization to me that's a winning organization. They have stadium plans in place. The city wants to work with them on that. I love the fact, so don't let this take away from the fact that I love seeing the huge success in FC Cincinnati.
Yeah.
And Cincinnati being in the league, yes, it's a small TV market, but you build an instant rivalry with Columbus Crew.
Which I think they need. They need somebody to go in there and rattle them up a little bit. That battle for Ohio, as it were, kind of a thing. So we have had a fantastic show today. We appreciate head coach of the Portland Thorns, Mark Parsons, for joining us, and Washington Spirit head coach Jim Gabarra as well. We talked a lot about different things today. We were here, we were there, we were in England, we were in Atlanta, we were in Sacramento for a brief moment, in Cincinnati. We'd love to know your thoughts, of course. You can find us all over the place, but importantly, you can find us on our website by going to 2upfrontsoccer.com. And you can find the show on Tuesdays and Thursdays live from 12 to 1 p.m. Central Time on Spreaker and on demand. If you miss the live show, go and subscribe on iTunes. Find us on iHeartRadio, Vavel USA, and the Sports Podcasting Network as well.
Check us out on Facebook, 2UpFront. Check us out on Twitter, at 2UpFrontSoccer. You can check out our own Twitter feeds, at Baxter Colburn, at Simon Provan. And folks, if you have not tuned in to the NWSL at all this season, we are not getting paid to say this. Check out the playoff games. September 30th, Washington takes on the Red Stars. That is on Fox Sports 1. That game is at 7 o'clock Central. Baxter, the other game is on Sunday, October 2nd, if I'm looking at this date right.
That is correct.
That is, can I say my Portland Thorns?
Oh, sure, of course you can.
Taking on the Western New York Flash. We didn't talk about much today. We'll talk about them more in the next show, but 4-0 thrashing on Boston Breakers. So 2 great semifinal games to check out in the NWSL.
Absolutely. He is Simon Provan. I am Baxter Colburn. Thanks so much for joining us. With our manager being the one above, we are 2 Up Front.